Hi everybody, this is going to be the first of many videos where I will be reviewing, I'll be reviewing stuff. They'll vary from books to films to gadgets and all sorts of stuff, and we'll also talk a little bit about what it's like to be a writer and what it's like to live in New Mexico. So, I thought for our first and very entertaining review, we would do a documentary that I discovered about a year ago. And yeah, it's actually a really great documentary, and I think you'll enjoy it yourself if you get a chance to go check it out. So, I present to you Bettie Page Reveals All. Aha! Now, for those of you who don't know who Bettie Page is, and for those of you who don't, what rock have you been living under, huh? Anyway, Bettie Page is called by many to be the pinup queen, the queen of BDSM, in a way, the bondage queen, and there's a very good reason for that. This documentary was done in 2012. The main basis of this documentary is an interview done with Bettie Page in 2008, and that's the main focus and core of it. So it's really an interesting one. It says here there is never before seen photographs and archive footage and exclusive audio interviews prior to her death. So, one reason why Bettie Page is an enigma is that nobody really knew what happened to her. She had a great big heyday in the late 40s and the 50s, and then right about the time of censoring of pornography and such, she decided to go ahead and retire. What most people didn't know is that most of her retirement was spent dealing with a severe mental illness, probably as a result of what happened when her father molested her as a little girl. She spent some time in a mental hospital in California and in Florida. Well, first Florida, then California. And she decided that she needed just to, stay on the down low. And it wasn't until the 1990s that she started to come back into the stratosphere. A lot of people were discovering her old magazines, her old photographs, and then, of course, there was the comic book The Rocketeer, in which the heroine of the the love interest of the hero was directly modeled after Bettie Page. And that's when people started to really get back into Bettie Page again. And then, of course, she's pretty much considered the flame that helped start the sexual revolution of the 60s. And I certainly believe that. Boy, howdy, did she ever. I first knew about Bettie Page in 2016 now. 2013. I was at a shop in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is about an hour, give or take, from here. Maybe 2 hours, 3. And all of a sudden they had this book, which, you'll hold on for a minute. Yeah, if I try not to trip over my bed. This here, the Bettie Page Confidential. And the first thing that drew my attention were this photo right here, the Bettie. Gonna put it in there. Yep. And it was that photograph that made me realize, oh wow, she's pretty sexy. And the book was published in the 1990s, but I finally got my hands on my own copy of it. I couldn't very well take it from the shop I was at. And I wondered if there was more to Betty. And after a while, I, would look up photographs on the internet, and it really didn't pique my interest. Then believe it or not, last summer, I was just fooling around on Netflix when this shows up in my recommended for me queue. I thought, oh, well, okay, why not? And I'm glad I did. Not only is there an interview with Betty herself, which was done just before her death in 2008, there is also interviews with Hugh Hefner, the editor of Playboy magazine, interviews with artists, models, and actresses that have kind of looked to Betty as inspiration. And she has, really, if you think about it. But one reason that she does stick out in a lot of people's minds is because of her bondage pictures. She was under the employ of a fellow by the name of Irving Klaw, along with his sister Paula, and they did what's referred to as cheesecake pictures. They would have girls dressed in underwear or corsets, and they'd have them doing certain things. For example, whipping, bondage, ball gags, things like that. In fact, hold on. Yeah, okay. There's a picture in here. I know I've got one in here. No, that's not it. Come on. Oh. This here. Here Betty's being spanked by someone. And weirdly enough, it were these pictures of Betty in bondage, being tied up and spanked and everything like that, that sold a lot. And the majority of the bondage pictures taken were by Paula Klaw, who was Irving Klaw's sister and business partner. And to a lot of people, that's why she's called the Queen of Bondage. But my favorite videos, and it's talked about a lot in this documentary, is the photos done by Bunny Yeager, a former pinup model herself, but then she decided to go on the other side of the camera, and some of them are just my favorite photos of Betty. Bunny is interviewed in this documentary, and she talks about a couple of sessions that she did with Betty in Florida. At the time, one of Betty's sisters was living in Florida, so she would go to visit her. And then, so they did a few sessions together. And again, some of them are my absolute favorite. Now, the review I would give this documentary, I would say a 9 out of 10. Now, it does discuss the portions of Bettie Page's career, but it also goes into the history of the censorship, especially the Kefauver hearings. If you get a chance, you should take a look about that. They also talk about the censorship of, nudity, pornography, delinquency attributed to pornography, and it is interesting to learn about that part in time, because if you think about it, back after World War II, there was sort of a very thin line between pornography and, censorship. But it's interesting to find out Betty's perspective of it. My favorite part of this whole documentary has to be Betty's interviews herself. She has this very nice southern drawl, and you can tell that she just loves... She loved talking about that time of her life. The one thing where it will break your heart a little bit, and it may trigger something, is when she talks about hearing voices in her head later on after she stopped pinup modeling. She talks a little bit about her stints in the mental hospitals, and again, that might be a trigger to some people. So if that's not your thing, I would maybe skip over that or not watch the documentary at all. They do also talk a lot about her influence on pop culture, not just the Rocketeer comic books, but fashion, art, movies, and it just really is fascinating. But again, the best part is Bettie's interviews with the film's director. You hear about some of her anecdotes, how she got discovered, why she did a lot of nude photographs, and that she actually designed most of her costumes that you see in the photographs. That's pretty neat, to my opinion. She was the first, you could say, I guess you could call her working star, way before Beyonce designed her own clothing line and Paris Hilton designed her own clothing line. So, I would recommend that if you get a chance, go online, because this is where I found it. I found it on Amazon. Go online, go to Barnes & Noble, Hastings, your local entertainment store. Get a copy of this documentary. You're not going to regret it. Oh, there's also a lot of great music on it, too. So, that's a bonus. So again, if you get a chance, go see this documentary. Well, so I hope you enjoyed my little review of this documentary. If there's anything you would like me to review, please leave your comments below. You can also check out my Patreon page, because not only do I do videos, I do a lot of audio recording, and I also do a lot of writing. So if you get a chance, go check out my Patreon. I'm going to leave a link in the video below. I'm also going to leave a link to the website for the film itself, and also a link to the Amazon page. And again, if there's something you'd like me to review, like a movie, or a book, or a gadget, or even some music, I definitely like to review music. Just leave a comment below. And until then, this is G-Gun Sailor, G-Gun Gabby Fish, Gabby Brillante, signing off.